Have you been feeling low on energy or out of balance? What if it's your liver trying to get your attention? Welcome back to the Senior Health Podcast, where timeless wisdom meets modern science to help you thrive at every stage of life. Today, we're honored to be joined by someone who truly lives and breathes that purpose. He hasn't just witnessed the evolution of modern health, he walked through every chapter of it. He spent over a century healing others with food, rhythm, and a deep compassion that never aged. It's a true privilege to once again sit down with Japan's legendary voice in longevity, Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara.
That's a generous introduction, John. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, especially when the topic is as vital as this one. When it comes to the liver, many people think only of alcohol or disease. But today, we'll explore how liver function changes with age, how it quietly affects your energy, digestion, sleep, and even mood. We'll look at the everyday habits that can burden it, and the surprisingly simple ones that can help it heal. I'll share what I've seen in my own patients alongside research from Japan and the US to show just how common and reversible these issues really are. And if you stay with us to the end, you'll walk away not only with clarity, but with tools, real science-backed actions that anyone can take, starting today. Because that's the miracle of the liver. Even at 80, 90 or 100 years old, it can still bounce back.
Wait, that's crazy. Even at 100?
Yes, John. Even then, the liver is the only organ that can regenerate almost completely, even when most of it is damaged. And yet, so few people, even in their 60s or 70s, give it the attention it deserves. Most people don't realize how many of their daily choices are quietly stressing this organ. What we breathe, what we eat, how we move. It all accumulates, and for seniors, that accumulation happens faster. But that's also what makes this episode so important, because the small changes we make now can mean the difference between just surviving and truly thriving in the years ahead.
That really resonates with me. I remember a patient of mine, an 81-year-old man named Harold, who came in complaining of low energy, constant bloating, and trouble concentrating. He'd never touched alcohol in his life, ate what he thought was a clean diet, and yet his liver was overloaded, inflamed, and struggling. It wasn't until we made just a few targeted changes that his energy returned, and he told me he finally felt like himself again, for the first time in years. It reminds me that age doesn't break us, accumulation does. So let's begin with the foundation. What exactly is the liver doing for us behind the scenes, and why does it matter more as we grow older?
The liver is a silent workhorse. It filters every drop of blood in the body nearly 20 to 25 times each day, removing toxins, balancing hormones, and managing nutrients. As we age, this constant filtering becomes slower, not because the liver gets weaker by design, but because the load it carries becomes heavier. Environmental toxins, long-term medication use, accumulated dietary stress, all of these begin to pile up.
And yet, most seniors are never told that this might be the source of their exhaustion or even their insomnia. They're given another pill instead of being shown how to lighten that internal load.
Exactly. And when we talk about toxins, we are not only referring to dramatic cases like pollution or alcohol. Everyday foods, even ones we grew up thinking were healthy, can create stress when eaten in the wrong way or in the wrong amounts. White rice, processed soy sauces, certain vegetable oils. They've become staples in modern diets, but our livers weren't built for this frequency. The impact isn't always immediate. It's the slow, invisible damage that adds up.
So the liver doesn't scream, it whispers.
It whispers through fatigue, through dull skin, through disrupted sleep patterns that people chalk up to just getting older. In fact, a 2021 study from Kyoto University found that mild liver dysfunction in adults over 65 was strongly associated with poor sleep quality and persistent daytime fatigue, even when traditional liver markers appeared normal.
That explains why so many people feel older than they are and don't even know where to begin reversing it. Most of them don't realize that behind their foggy mornings and restless nights, there could be this overworked, underappreciated organ trying to keep up. So, doctor, how can seniors know if their liver is stressed?
It's a powerful question, John, because unlike other organs, the liver doesn't always cry out in pain. It copes silently until it can't. But there are early signs, and they often appear far from where people expect.
So not necessarily in the gut or near the liver itself.
Exactly. Look at the skin. Is it dull or itchy without an obvious cause? Are there sudden changes in energy after meals or unexpected weight gain around the belly despite no major dietary change?
Those are such easy symptoms to dismiss. Many might blame the weather or just age.
And yet, when we dig deeper, we find elevated liver enzymes, sluggish bile flow, or low glutathione levels, all pointing to a liver that's struggling to keep up. Even mood changes can be clues, John. A burdened liver can disrupt hormones and brain chemistry, leading to irritability, poor focus, and even a kind of mental fatigue that people struggle to name.
That explains so many of my patients who say, I just don't feel like myself anymore and have no answers from their usual checkups. Which brings us to something practical. What tests or tools actually give a clear picture of liver health, especially before it's too late?
There are three main tools that I rely on, and none of them are invasive. The first is a simple liver panel in a blood test, which checks enzymes like ALT and AST. Elevated levels can hint at inflammation, though even normal numbers don't always mean the liver is healthy. That's why I always pair it with an ultrasound or fibroscan, which can detect fat buildup and early fibrosis. These scans don't require needles or radiation, and they can often reveal silent damage long before symptoms appear.
That's powerful, and I imagine especially important for seniors who may already be on multiple medications or have complex health histories. These tests offer a window without adding further stress to the body, which is something many people don't realize is even an option. I've had patients tear up when they find out it's possible to check in on their liver before it's too late. So, what's the third test or tool that can help seniors know about their liver health?
The third piece is what I call functional clues. Changes in digestion, mood, skin texture, or sleep rhythms. These patterns often tell me as much as lab results. The body speaks in patterns long before it shouts in symptoms. I once treated a woman in her 70s who had clear scans, but her sleep was broken and her eyes had lost their clarity. We made small changes in timing, in hydration, in herbs, and within 2 months she said she could see the sky again, as if the colors had returned. The tests mattered, yes, but so did her attention to herself.
It's remarkable how often healing begins just by noticing.
And just by asking better questions, not what's wrong with me, but what's my body trying to show me?
That shift in mindset is everything, because when you stop blaming the body and start partnering with it, healing becomes possible and even joyful. It also reminds us that the liver doesn't need punishing detoxes or expensive cleanses. It needs space, support, and less noise. So let's get into the heart of it. What everyday habits are making things worse? What's number one bad habit seniors should be aware of?
Let's start with one that surprises many people: late night eating. When you eat close to bedtime, especially heavy or sugary meals, you force the liver to stay active long into the night. That disrupts its natural detox rhythm, which is most efficient while we sleep. Over time, this constant overwork can reduce the liver's ability to clear toxins and regulate hormones. In seniors whose circadian rhythms are already more fragile, the impact is even more pronounced.
That's something I see all the time. People waking up groggy, thinking they didn't sleep well, when really their liver never got to rest. And it's not just about avoiding midnight snacks. It's about respecting the body's internal timing. Seniors often struggle with appetite earlier in the day and then compensate late at night, unknowingly burdening their system. What's the second habit that's damaging your liver? And most people don't even realize it's happening.
The second habit is excessive snacking, even on seemingly healthy foods. Constant grazing keeps insulin elevated and never gives the liver a true break. It's like keeping the engine running all day with no cool down. Seniors with insulin resistance or prediabetes are particularly vulnerable. Their liver becomes the dumping ground for excess energy, which quickly turns to fat.
So in that case, even a few too many handfuls of nuts or fruit can tip the balance.
Yes, not because those foods are bad, but because frequency matters as much as quality. The liver needs pauses.
That redefines how we think about healthy eating. It's not just what we eat, but how often and when. For seniors who followed the small meals throughout the day advice for years, it can be hard to unlearn that. But giving the liver a true rest window might be one of the most powerful shifts they can make. We've covered two already. What's the final hidden stressors that might be quietly exhausting the liver each day?
Third is low-quality cooking oil. And I don't mean just deep-fried food. Many seniors cook daily with refined oils like soybean, sunflower, or corn oil, thinking they're heart healthy. But these oils oxidize quickly at high temperatures and produce byproducts that the liver must neutralize. Over time, this creates chronic low-grade inflammation, especially in already sensitive bodies. It's like giving the liver a constant chemical puzzle to solve, meal after meal.
That's something I rarely hear discussed, especially in older dietary advice. A lot of my patients were told for years to avoid butter and use vegetable oil instead. They thought they were making the healthier choice. But in reality, they may have unknowingly increased their inflammatory load. So let's shift toward that hope. What are simple habits that can actually support and rejuvenate the liver, especially for older adults looking to feel lighter, clearer, and stronger?
The first habit is fasting. In Japan, we've always believed that rest, both physical and internal, is essential for healing. One of the most powerful ways we create that rest is through gentle fasting, which activates a process called autophagy. Autophagy is the body's built-in cleaning system where damaged cells and waste products are broken down and recycled. It's like sweeping the house before sunrise, invisible work that keeps everything running smoothly.
That's such a powerful image, and I think it helps people understand that healing isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's the quiet work happening behind the scenes that matters most.
Exactly. When we stop eating for 12 to 16 hours, even just overnight, the liver gets a break from processing and can focus on regeneration. That's when inflammation decreases, energy improves, and metabolism resets. In older adults, this doesn't have to be extreme. Simply having an early dinner and avoiding late-night snacking can be enough to trigger these healing pathways.
It's such a hopeful concept. Most people think healing at that age requires complicated regimens, but sometimes simplicity is more powerful. And science is catching up to what traditional cultures have practiced for centuries.
Absolutely. In fact, we've seen something remarkable in populations who fast for spiritual reasons, like Muslims during Ramadan. For 30 days they eat in a restricted window, and studies now show clear metabolic benefits, improved insulin sensitivity, reduced liver enzymes, and better fat metabolism. What's important is the intentional rhythm.
That rhythm, that structure, seems so crucial, but it's something many seniors have lost, often without realizing it. So tell me, doctor, aside from fasting, what's another daily habit that can truly support liver function in a sustainable, nourishing way?
The second habit is gentle, consistent movement. Not intense exercise, but intentional activity that keeps the blood flowing and metabolism engaged. Even a walk after meals can dramatically reduce the burden on the liver.
I always tell my patients, if you can walk to your mailbox, you can walk a little farther the next day.
Exactly. Movement isn't just about strength. It's circulation, and the liver depends on that flow to receive nutrients and carry waste away.
And I imagine, too, that movement helps regulate blood sugar, which directly affects liver fat.
It does. In fact, a study in older adults showed that just 15 minutes of walking after dinner lowered post-meal blood sugar spikes by 30 to 40%. That means the liver doesn't have to scramble to mop up the excess.
That's so encouraging, because it makes the process feel accessible. No gym membership, no special gear, just a pair of shoes and a little commitment. So let's keep going. We've talked about fasting and movement. What's the third habit that helps restore this vital organ, especially later in life?
The third habit is embracing bitter and fermented foods. These flavors have been part of traditional diets for centuries, and they serve a very real purpose. They stimulate bile flow, which helps the liver digest fats and eliminate waste more efficiently. Foods like dandelion greens, bitter melon, miso, and aged pickles support the liver's detox pathways in a way sweet or bland foods simply don't.
That's such an interesting point, because bitter is the one taste we've almost completely erased from modern Western diets.
And yet, it's the one the liver loves most. Bitters wake the digestive system and keep bile moving, which prevents stagnation.
So it's not just about what we avoid, but also what we've forgotten to include.
Exactly. Healing sometimes means returning to what our grandparents instinctively knew.
You know, I've seen this in my own patients. The ones who slowly reintroduce fermented or bitter foods often find their digestion improves, not because they added more supplements, but because they rebalance their meals. And the shift isn't just physical. There's often a sense of clarity that follows.
Absolutely. And that clarity is something we should all strive for, not just in mind, but in body. The liver is not a machine. It's a living, breathing partner in our health. And when we give it space, rhythm, and nourishment, it responds with strength at any age.
You've said it beautifully, Doctor. And I think today's conversation has given so many of our listeners not just information, but real hope. We often underestimate what's possible in our later years, but your work proves that healing is always within reach, sometimes through the simplest of changes. Before we go, would you leave us with one sentence, something our listeners can carry with them as they begin to care for their liver more intentionally?
Of course. If you want to feel younger, start by treating your liver like it's already wise, because it is.
That's going to stay with me, and I imagine with many of our listeners. If today's episode made you think differently about your health, share it with someone you love. Your health is a journey, and this next video is a must-watch if you want to stay healthy after 60.